Well, welcome everybody. Oh, I got to jump start. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Appreciate you tuning in today. We've got a great topic for you. Question we get asked quite a bit is these new construction promotions up to in our market. I've seen as high as up to $45,000 worth of a builder concessions. So we wanted to chat a little bit about what those are, what those mean, and how you can use them. This example is just one of the builders we have in the valley, and we'll talk about kind of the specifics of what it means for their promotion. We've got a great guest on tap today, Chase Hodgson with Summit Funding, and we'll introduce him very quickly here. But we did just want to introduce myself. I'm the associate broker team lead here at My Home Connection at Real Broker, and we have a sponsor today of the perfect home buying process. This is a 5-step program that we've developed over the last couple of decades here to help make the home buying process as kind of as efficient and as good as we can in eliminating some costs, some concerns, providing information, reports, market reports, property reports. We've got a podcast series to hopefully answer the majority, if not all, of your questions in the home buying process. Real estate secrets we'd like to share with you that are helpful to know as you navigate the purchase of your home. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can take advantage of the perfect home buying process here in a little bit. But first, I'd like to introduce again our guest, Chase Hodgson. How you doing today, Chase?
Fantastic, Jerod. Appreciate you having me again.
Yeah.
How's things going for you over there?
They're going good. This market's slightly different these days, but trying to adjust for the clients. These promos are nice to have if you're going to look for a exciting part of where the market's at. Is we are now able to find buyers deals or whatever term you want to use, whereas a year plus ago those just weren't available to be had.
Right. Absolutely. No, it's if you go back even 5 years, I think buyers, have more footing for negotiation than they've had, in all the past 5 years. And the amount of concessions that the builders are willing to offer to not carry inventory through the winter, it's a great time to buy. I know interest rates are higher, but if you can afford right now, it is a great time to buy.
Yeah, so let's talk about what was happening kind of during COVID and even in large part for our market here in the Boise area for quite some time, and that is it's been a very seller friendly market and not a whole lot of help in the way of the buyers. Every once in a while we'd see some promotions come up, like you said, if a builder was trying to move some inventory or something like that. But now that there's kind of some uncertainty, some adjustment, these promotions are nice to have. And by the way, for those that are listening, it's not just the builders that we can get these sellers concessions from. We can now on occasion actually go to existing home sellers and ask them for sellers concessions as well. But we're specifically talking about new construction today. But anyway, so last time we talked, you were getting a lot of questions around how these promotions work recently.
Yeah, it's the great thing is that they're out there. The other thing is that you have to understand what you can and can't use and how you can and can't use them. And so that varies from the type of loan that you're doing. But you like that number that you just showed, that $45,000. So depending on your purchase price, so if you have I don't know, say $400,000 purchase price, and you are a conventional buyer, you can use 3% of that towards closing costs. So that's $12,000.
Okay, so you've still got quite a bit of budget within that promotion.
Yeah, and the builders do tend to adjust for that a bit, to where if it's a lower priced house, they won't offer as much seller concession, and the concession goes up as the price of the home goes up. But often we run into trying to use all of the seller concession because there's there's uh, there's two things that we fight as lenders, and that's a minimum contribution. So, with all of we have a great entity here that we've talked about before in Idaho Housing, which is our local bond agency that provides down payment assistance and home, for homeowners and different programs for people to make 150,000 or less annually. And so with their programs, you have a 0.5% minimum, and that you have to have into the deal out of your own pocket, right? And then you also, as a lender, we're dealing with the minimum required investment, right? So you have to, whatever your down payment is, like you have to make that down payment, because seller credits can't be used towards down payment.
Right. Yeah. Critical fact. But IHA will help in the way of, and that was one of our prior podcasts that I'll link in the description below, that you can potentially get a second on the purchase of that to kind of minimize that cost. But being able to take that entire promotion and use it, the down is not one of those areas.
Yeah. It becomes problematic at times. And it varies, right? Like you've got conventional loans, so and that it even varies within a conventional loan. If you're putting 3% down or less, or if you're putting less than 10% down, then you can only use 3% of a seller credit. If you're putting between 10 and 25%, then you can use 6% of a seller credit. And then if you're putting 25% down or more, you can use 9% of a seller credit.
Yeah, so
that's just one type of loan, right? Where you have all of that variation in what you can use.
Yeah, and there's other variations, and we'll talk about. I mean, there's others yet to be had. So when it says up to, purchase price of home can be one, type of loan can be another, percentage that you're putting down can be another. So, my point is, reach out to us so we can help you understand. Our objective would be for you to maximize every bit of that promotion. But you just need to know that that's an up to amount, and we'll help you figure out what of that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, and it can be a complicated conversation for sure, because they have all this seller credit, and understanding that what you can and can't use it for, because you like you said, you want to take advantage of every bit of it that you can, but we're restricted by guidelines in what we, how we can use it and how much of it we can use.
Yeah, no, there's other areas we can use it, not just on the financing side. A lot of builders will allow you to use it for upgrades in the home, specifically, in our market and probably other markets as well. But we've got some builders that don't provide backyard landscaping, so you don't have any sprinklers put in, you don't have any sod put in. You might not have fencing put in certain areas if you're not butted up against a common area or your neighbor didn't put one in. New construction considerations that some people might not think about is refrigerators are not typically included either in new construction or resale, because they're not a mounted appliance. Blinds are often overlooked, things like that. So we can take some of those credits, use them on the financing side as much as is allowable, and then we can ask the builder if we want to ask the builder. And there's other reasons why we might not want to ask the builder, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But our point is, we'll help you map out the things that you want to consider, right? If you got pets, you probably want your backyard sooner than later.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So anyway, we're just trying to talk through some of the things that you can use these credits for, and each builder might have their own, and each lender and or lender program might have their own guidelines.
Yeah, and the majority of the guidelines are the same for all lenders, but it's inside the programs is where they're going to vary. And so working with someone that knows how to figure that out and figure it out quickly, so that you can, like Jerod's talking about, apply those credits and use them up, and it's not last minute where we're deciding, no, we're leaving $2,000 worth of seller credit on the table where we could have put in the sod, or and there's other ways to use it too that are outside of the traditional closing cost allowance, prepaying HOAs, prepaying property taxes,
Home
Sometimes those,
warranty.
yeah, those are right. Home warranty. Sometimes those things are available to you as well.
Yeah, yeah. And real quick, we'll touch on these promotions we have for our perfect home buying process, and that is we'll provide through the perfect home buying process up to $500 for your home inspection, and we absolutely encourage people to get inspections even on new construction properties. And then, of course, you know, as you're financing purchase, you're going to want an appraisal on the property or need an appraisal on the property. So Chase and Summit are offering to provide a credit at that as well. So back to Chase's original point, you know, if you are thinking about buying a home, it could either be the perfect time or a far better time than you would initially think in the way of moving, you know, into something here, especially in the winter, right? Because even though the market's changed, the economy's different, things going on in the world as of the time of this recording. But, you know, if you can qualify and get into a home now with all these promotions, you know, maybe some uncertainty with some incentives, but then you can refinance later when rates kind of come back down again. I think it could be a really good opportunity for certain people, and to ask the questions. Am I one of those people? Is a great conversation to have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think one of the hardest things that I see happen is that it's, people don't start soon enough. They think that they can't afford to buy, the interest rates are too high for me right now, or whatever. And having working with people that you can trust, because we don't want to see anybody get over their head or be house poor, as they say. But with the values of homes going up as they are, there's a point in time where a lot of people won't be able to buy if something doesn't happen in this appreciation market, right? And our supply and demand doesn't get evened out. So
Yep.
taking advantage of it when it's there is the most important thing. Um, Stupid cliche like saying, like, the best time to buy real estate was yesterday, next best time is today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Almost
going to live by that.
everybody regrets not doing it sooner than later. I've
Yeah,
never, you know, well, I don't know about never, but seldom, if ever, have I talked to somebody that said, "Man, I wish I wouldn't have bought." You know,
yeah.
obviously there's extenuating circumstances in the past we could reflect back on, but it's a rarity. Well, let's talk about speaking of interest rates. You know, one of these builders. So I just brought up on the screen here 4 different builders that currently have promotions here in the valley. Again, to move inventory to keep things moving along. But Toll Brothers has a 30-year fix with a 2-1 buy down. So let's talk about things that might not be obvious for folks that are saying, "Hey, I'm kind of in the sevens or the eights." How would this credit here help them in the regards to a buy down? How does that work?
Yeah, and it's obviously that's a interest rate buy down, what we call points, to buy down your interest rate. Translating into dollars, that is definitely one of the things that you can use a seller credit towards. And right now, it's a great option. I'm a huge fan of what they call temporary buy down. So that's a 2-1 buy down. They have a 1-0 buy down. They have a 3-2-1 buy down. And what that means is, so for your example, Jerod, the 2-1 buy down for the first year, it's 2 percentage points lower interest rate than it is at the time that you close your loan. It's like that for a full year. The next year, it's 1% lower than the interest rate at the time that you locked your loan, and in the third year, it floats up to the rate that you locked. The
Mm-hmm.
reason this is important is because the market in general, and the people that in my industry and economics and around, I mean, you can run the gamut. Nobody believes that rates are going to stay at the point that they're at. We do believe they're going to come down a bit, and so that temporary buy down allows you to bridge that gap from the time you close to where you can get into a lower interest rate. Makes the house payment more affordable in the time being. And the great thing, and one of the reasons I love the 2-1 buy down, is that it's a seller credit. You're not using your own money, for one. And the second is, so say you have a 2-1 buy down, and the first year rates go down to where you want to, are low enough to where you want to refinance. Whatever's left over and hasn't been used from that buy down now gets applied towards the principal. So you don't lose any part of that seller credit.
Beautiful. Yeah, so let's well, the audience should know our very next podcast is actually going to be, what do we anticipate interest rates to do? How can we kind of bridge that? How can we take advantage of some of these promotions, or the adjustment in pricing to kind of make that transition? But let's talk about what that looks like in the way of, so they would need to qualify today for the rate, even with the rate being bought down for those first 2 years. But the beauty of that's going to be, at some point, they once the rates go down, they could refinance that. So now they've qualified at a much higher number, and then they've been given this time to wait for rates to come back down, refine out, and now readjust their overall monthly
Correct.
Costs on the property.
Yeah, it's all for the future, right? And nobody has a crystal ball, right? We got to preface with that. But all economic signs point to inflation coming down, rates follow inflation. And so what that means is that we can use what they have now to get into the home. And while there's all these incentives, while there's not a ton of competition in the market, while it's more of a buyer's market than we've seen in the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then once the interest rates do settle, whether that's this year, next year, whatever, then you can reduce your payment at that point by reducing your interest rate.
Yeah, and our objective would be, as you mentioned earlier, to help them identify, I've got, let's just call it a bucket of promotion here. Where am I going to use it, right? Because you could use it in any number of different areas, and some areas might be more beneficial than others.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't just say, hey, I'm going to, I propose, not willy-nilly just kind of picking and, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but really sit down and talk about where your financial future is headed, and how this is going to best benefit you going forward.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? Like, absolutely. You've got to identify where it's going to be best used, and not just assume, oh, we need to get your rate down. Well, no, if it allows you to come in with less money, and now you can pay some revolving debt down, which, most of the time that's at 18 or 19%, you could drastically reduce your monthly expenditures more than what the interest rate would relieve. Then it might allow us to do that. So you can place, it's not just about where we can use that money, but it's about where that money allows you to put your money in the transaction as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good example of that, not on the financing side, but hey, if I do want to do upgrades, I won't speak for any particular builder, but I think if they're all honest, their costs are generally higher than where they could get that work done elsewhere, right? If you say, hey, Mrs. Builder, I'd like for you to finish out my backyard and put the fencing up, that's going to cost X dollars, use it from your promotion. In most cases, if they were to get a second, third opinion from other subs, maybe a fence company, maybe a landscape company to come in and do that. In most cases, I've seen that be less cost, because there's probably a markup within the builder to do those very same chores. So now, some people might want to take advantage of, let's say, the landscaping, just because they can get the builder in sooner than later and just not worry about it. They got the dogs that need to come in and out. But anyway, we can help talk through where that makes sense and where it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think builders are like everybody else, right? Like, the temporary buy down's one point. There's builders out there offering a permanent buy down, substantial. I've seen some 599s and a permanent buy down. The builder's spending money to do that, spending a lot of money to do that, and so that may be affecting pricing. They're businessmen, right? It's not anything negative. They're businessmen. So, like, when you talk about with the landscaping and the fence, it may be cheaper for you to go direct. I don't know any industry where that's not the case, right? Because now, if they're doing it for you, now they've got employees that are covering it, and they've got management expenses and all that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to save and use that money, and make the transaction fit your scenario, your specific financial scenario.
Yeah, and I think that permanent versus temporary rate buy down is a biggie. I think folks need to understand. Am I going to just buy it down and leave it there? That might not make sense for the amount of time they're going to plan on owning the home, right? That's going to come into play about, if somebody's going to have it for 20, 10, 15, 20 years, that would make more sense than somebody's like, well, I'm a small family, but we plan on being a big family, and this is, a 5-year home. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So,
I think the national average is like 7 years for people.
right,
Like,
right.
so yeah, like understanding the whole thing. You're absolutely right, Jerod. Understanding the whole thing, so we can put that money to use in the best way for each person. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. So we are kind of coming up on the 20-minute mark. We try to keep them fairly concise with a lot of value, a lot of good information. So we'll look to wind it down. But I think, the most important things to take away are there are these promotions. They can vary from builder to builder. Like I said, I think one of the most we're seeing currently is about a 45K, depending on the price of the home. Other builders offering some rate, buy downs, rate locks. We could talk about locks in a different podcast later if we want as well. So the point is, we're in tune with where these promotions are coming from, who the builders are that we'd recommend you lean into based upon where you want to be in the valley, what promotions would be more conducive to what you want to do. Put you in touch with Chase, talk about your financial, current situation, where you want to be going, forward in the future. Again, leveraging this perfect home buying process. The best way to do that is to either reach out to Chase or myself. Chase can be found at summitfunding.net. He's got his contact information here. Just reference the perfect home buying process, and we'll begin that very process. myhomeconnection.com is our website, and we've got our contact information up here in the top right. Just an email, phone call, or text, and we'd be glad to help. But
Absolutely.
yeah, well, we certainly appreciate your time today, Chase. Your valuable information, and how well you take care of our mutual clients. It's really been great working with you over the years, and we look forward to many more.
Yeah, me as well, Jerod. It's one of my favorite relationships and one of my best friendships that I've made in this industry. So always
Same,
appreciate you, bro.
same, absolutely. All right, well, with that, everybody, we'll wish you a blessed day.